It's 3:15. Ben Jackson with you through until 6 this evening here on BBC Radio Leicester. Now, my guest in depth this Friday afternoon is, and I'm not sure he's going to like being described as this, one of Leicestershire's great legends, boasting, 23 top 40 hit singles, including 10 top 5 hits with classics like Under the Moon of Love. Former Showaddywaddy frontman Dave Bartram brought passion and energy to the music scene. After over 50 appearances on Top of the Pops and 38 years with the band, Dave quit as frontman last year and decided to put the tales of one particular tour down in a book. The Boys of Summer comes out in a couple of weeks' time, but Dave Bartram joins us in the studio. Dave, it is a great pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for coming in and joining us.
It's nice to be back in the studio here.
Now, actually, the last time I saw you, probably don't even remember this, you did a gig for us for Radio Leicester's 40th birthday. We had a big do at the De Montfort Hall.
Indeed.
And you came on, and it was just electrifying. It was an amazing gig, I thought.
It was a great night over there. I remember it well. And there were a lot of other artists and ensembles there. And it just, I think everything went like a dream that night. When you put on those huge bashes with so many people sort of taken to the stage, and you're trying to cram this in and that in, often it can be hectic and just out of control, and somebody sort of starts to panic, and the wheels start coming off. But that night it just went like a dream, and I know a lot of money was raised.
Lots of money for Ruby Rainbow Appeal. But
indeed,
I remember standing off stage just as you were going on, and you guys were so chatty beforehand. There was this moment where you just all became quite focused. And it was just that moment, just a few minutes beforehand, and I thought, yeah, they're really into it now, and then just rocked the place. It was brilliant.
That's right, just those 30 seconds prior to taking to the stage. Yeah, there's some, I don't know, I could never quite explain it, but something happens inside that sort of, it's not sort of, here we go again. It's a totally different feeling that is really, really indescribable, to be honest. It's not that you freeze, it's just, there's just this moment of where the adrenaline sort of maybe just overtakes you.
And of course, you know, for anybody that lived in Leicestershire at the time, me included, the fact that Showaddywaddy was just at the top of its game, you know, everywhere you looked, there you were, Top of the Pops, again and again and again, you know, in the top 10 again. There was a great feeling of, I don't know if it's the right word, but kind of ownership, that you were our band.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I mean, we were always very proud to come from Leicester, and you know, we were never ashamed of that fact. And the Leicester public, really, in the early days, they got so behind the band. We did a talent competition that was held at the old Bailey's Night Spot. That we won, and I think that there were around about 4,000 people that crammed into Bailey's the night of that final, and the people, they I don't know, there's just something about Leicester people, when they get behind something, they really do, you know, big time. And you know, we were always very fond of the Leicestershire public, and it was always fantastic to come back to the De Mont, and you know, the gig you mentioned. It's always great to get back on that stage, and I think something definitely sort of motivated us to just pull out an extra stop, you know.
And of course, I want to talk about your book in a while, but I think it's just interesting to kind of put the whole thing into context, because Showaddywaddy exploded onto the music scene. Now, you know, everybody that says, oh, it was an overnight success, but with 10 years of hard work behind it, and I guess it was the same kind of thing, but what is it, 76 to 78 particularly, and thereafter, but you were just huge. You were one of the biggest bands in the world.
Yeah, we had a fantastic track record, and you know, for it to have gone on so long, I mean, we were having hits for sort of 11 years, you know, which was absolutely wonderful, and we've still had hit albums, you know, sort of since then. I think we presented something. We presented rock and roll with no frills, but I think we presented it in such a way that sort of modernised it and made it a very sort of 70s and even into the 80s kind of thing. And people just warmed to it. And I think the Daily Telegraph once said that we were a band for a recession, because we could put a smile on people's faces.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? RuPaul had the overtones in just towards the end of her programme a few minutes ago. They're appearing at Tomorrow.
I wondered who those guys were.
Well, you know, and they're of the moment that you were maybe in 76, 78, you know, having, the last couple of years have been fantastic for them. It's music that makes people smile, it's great, it's up-tempo stuff. Do you miss those days where, you know, everybody wanted a bit of you?
Actually, on Monday, December the 3rd, it will be exactly a year since I performed my last concert with the band. I don't actually miss the performance side. I felt I reached my peak a few years ago, and you know, things were... Well, I wasn't getting the same amount of enjoyment from it, and that's why I ultimately decided to quit. So, in that sense, I don't miss it. But obviously, I miss the on-the-road camaraderie. I certainly don't miss sort of being sat in diverted traffic on motorways at sort of 3 a.m., which seemed to be the trend for the last couple of years of my career. But there's bound to be aspects that I do miss. But in the main, you know, I'm loving life at the moment. And
could you see yourself performing again?
I would somehow doubt it. It's the band's 40th anniversary year next year, and it's already been touted that I'll be making a comeback. Had the guys have been performing in Leicester, I think I might have considered it. But oddly enough, there is no Leicester date in the band's 40th anniversary tour.
How is that possible?
Well, I don't know that De Montfort Hall were turned their nose up at it for some reason. And there aren't really that many music venues. The Curve is a theatre venue. There aren't really the places to play.
If somebody came to you somewhere in Leicestershire, you know, a big enough place, and said, "Look, will you put one on?" Would you do it?
Oh, absolutely. I'd have to get back on stage to... just to say thank you to the Leicester public. It's something I never managed to do. I actually was desperate to do a farewell concert in Leicester, but the powers that be at these venues just seem to have other ideas.
Well, so, I can't believe... I'm shocked by that, actually. That's astonishing.
Well,
I hope they're embarrassed, frankly, because I think it's just unbelievable. Having seen the effect that you have on an audience, it's remarkable.
Well, the band were always capable of performing, always capable of lifting an audience, and always give their all. And you know, the band, without myself, are still getting out there, and they're doing very, very well on tour. They're going down a storm wherever they go. So that, you know, I don't feel any pangs of guilt for not being there.
Dave, we'll keep talking in a second or two. We've got all sorts of problems on the roads there this afternoon, so we're just going to go and get an update on that for a second.
Travel news for Leicestershire.
BBC Radio Leicester.
The southbound M1 does remain closed from junction 22 down to junction 21A after an earlier overturned lorry. There is very slow, lengthy queues right back to junction 23 at Loughborough. The diversion route will take you via the A50 and then the A46, where you will find queues around the Fieldhead Island and also towards the A46 Island at Groeby. The advice from the police is to leave the southbound side of the M1 before junction 22. Alternatives do include junction 23, where you can then follow the busy A6 through Loughborough, or exit at junction 23A for the A42, which is looking increasingly busy around the M1 as well. Plus, slightly further south, we have got an accident also causing delays on the southbound A42, where traffic is slow on the stretch between the M1 and junction 11, where the A42 does turn into the M42. Queues are now right back along the southbound A42 past Measham and Packington. Elsewhere this afternoon, traffic is slow on the northbound side of the M1 as you pass the scene of that overturned lorry, and thick fog has shrouded much of the county, including patches along the M1, so do take some extra care. And we have just heard that we've got some temporary traffic lights that aren't working on Greengate Lane in Birstall. Police are en route there. So to recap, the M1 does remain closed southbound between junctions 22 and 21A, with queues right back to junction 23. Live from Area Traffic Control in Leicester, I'm Ben Stones.
Ben Jackson.
BBC Radio Leicester.
Yeah, we'll keep you up to date slightly more frequently than usual this afternoon, only because there's so many problems on the roads, and being it's a Friday rush hour, being it's very cold and icy in places, and there's fog now, we'll keep you up to date here on BBC Radio Leicester. I'm talking in depth to Dave Bartram from Showaddywaddy this afternoon here on 104.9 FM. Dave, it is great to talk to you. 40 years, though. It's a long time, isn't it? And when you think of the, but it is, whichever way you look at it, those heydays of the 70s and 80s. Do you miss them, or is it? I mean, is fame always a good thing, a bad thing, a bit of the two?
Well, the way it was structured in the 70s, when we sort of kicked off our run of success, it all became something of a blur because you were literally so busy. The pressure to keep coming up with another single or another album. In those days, you had to deliver 4 singles in a year, and you had to deliver an album every year. Now, a lot of the bands around, you know, like our local guys, Kasabian, they will come up with an album every 3 years. You know, so there's a lot more time to go back and take a good look at the thing and see which direction you want to take, and the whole creative process is allowed, you know, to spread its wings. But certainly when we were having success, there was just constant pressure to come up with something, get back in, do another album, and we'd find ourselves maybe a couple of songs short when we were recording an album. So, you know, Trevor and myself would just have to get in the studio and write something just to finish off an album, literally in an afternoon.
Really?
So it really was extraordinary, the pace that one had to work at.
How do you cope with that, though? I mean, we know, you know, frankly, the road side of the road to fame is littered with people who haven't. But how do you keep your head screwed on?
Well, I think being under pressure is a great source of motivation anyway. And if you've got to come up with something, invariably you do. And we coped very, very well with that pressure. At times, you know, it did get a little bit much, and you felt like you were living in this fuzzy world. But ultimately, you know, we thrived on the pressure and the challenge of coming up with the goods. And we'd be on small aeroplanes in fog coming from Wales and going off to do a TV show, then getting back on the crate and going back to do another show in Margate, you know, the same night. And it was utterly hectic. But I'm still here, you know, to tell the tale.
Yeah, well, quite. And sane. And you know, you've lived a life in the county, lived predominantly in villages. And I think that's quite interesting, that the big lights. You could have gone and lived in London and nobody would have blamed you, I guess.
I had 5 months in London and I hated it.
Simple as that.
Well, I hated it. I didn't so much hate London, but I just hated the unsociability of it all. It's a very pacey city to live in, but I didn't make one friend all the time I was down there. Just people move and they don't talk to each other. And I really did not like that. And I was back up here like a shot.
And I suppose, I mean, and you know, tell me if I'm wrong, but if you live in a relatively small village, that people are more respectful of your privacy.
Absolutely. I've always lived with that. I lived in Woodhouse Eaves, bought my first house over there, and sort of became very much part of the community thing. You know, met a lot of lovely people. And frequented some of the local hostelries, and as one does, and you know, and that's the kind of life I've always enjoyed. Just having a little bit of time and finding out what makes people tick, and keeping my feet firmly on the ground, which you know, my parents always were. You know, they wouldn't let me stray away, and also being in such a large group of people as a band helped to keep people's feet firmly on the floor. Because if somebody started getting a bit egotistical or stepping out of line, the other guys would, you know, bring them straight back into line. And
which is interesting because you hear so much, don't you, of bands that just simply implode and that they haven't spoken to each other since.
It's easy done. I know. Obviously, the obvious case there is Pink Floyd, who were making records in different parts of the world and still purported to be a band. And they came out with some incredibly creative works, but that to me was never what a band was all about. It's all about getting out there on the road, you know, sweating blood for your public who've put you there, and I think that's the way most Leicester people would feel if they were in similar shoes.
Dave, we'll talk more after the headlines and traffic and travel, but of course you've now turned to writing, and this is a fascinating book, I think. I just think it's just a snippet of what is a 40-year career. It's quite bittersweet.
Yeah, there's that one. I'm actually coming close to finishing my second book now, which actually does focus on the entire 40 years. But the book, The Boys of Summer, which finally comes out after we've had a lot of political problems, and I fired the previous publisher who turned out to be a little unscrupulous perhaps for want of a slightly stronger word, but no, we'll finally be available in hardback on the 14th of December, so I'm really excited about that. And the company I've got on board are very, very enthusiastic, and they love the book, and they're going to get behind it. I'm going to get out there signing. There's rumours of signing in the shop here, actually.
Well, I'd be thrilled if you do. You can sign one for me. Listen, Dave, we'll talk more in a couple of minutes' time.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thanks ever so much. It's Dave Bartram, lead singer of Showaddywaddy up until a year ago Monday, in fact, joining us here on BBC Radio Leicester. It's 3:30.
BBC Radio Leicester.
A 14-year-old boy has been found guilty of the manslaughter of a Leicester shop worker. Panutharai Namalaraja, who was known as Nimal, and had 2 children, died a week after he was attacked at the junction of Gypsy Lane and Northfield Road in June. A new campaign group's urging the government to fully implement the Leveson Inquiry's recommendations on regulating newspapers. Minister said a draft bill will be ready in 2 weeks. Solicitors acting for former leader David Parsons have written to Leicestershire County Council. The authority says it still owed £4,000 in travel expenses, something Mr Parsons denies. The weather for Leicestershire and Rutland staying cold and frosty. Generally dry, though, today. Highs of 4 degrees Celsius. That's 39 Fahrenheit.
Travel news for Leicestershire.
BBC Radio Leicester.
The southbound M1 does remain closed from junction 22 down to junction 21A after an earlier overturned lorry. There's very slow, lengthy queues right back to junction 23 at Loughborough. The diversion route will take you via the A50 and then the A46, where you will find queues around the Fieldhead Island and also towards the A46 island at Groby. The advice from the police is to leave the southbound side of the M1 before junction 22. Alternatives do include junction 23, where you can then follow the busy A6 through Loughborough, or exit at junction 23A for the A42, which is looking increasingly busy around Castle Donington. There is some good news on the A42 slightly further south, where the accident has been moved, meaning that queues are easing southbound around junction 11, where the A42 does turn into the M42. Elsewhere this afternoon, traffic is slow on the northbound side of the M1 as you go past the scene of that overturned lorry, and also slightly further back at junction 21A. That's as a result of thick fog which has shrouded much of the county this afternoon. That does include patches along the M1. Do take some extra care as you're out and about on the roads. And we have just heard that temporary lights in Birstall on Greengate Lane aren't working at the moment. Police are en route there as we speak. So to recap, the M1 does remain closed if you're heading southbound between junctions 22 and 21A. The advice is to leave the M1 southbound before junction 22, where we have got queues right back to junction 23. Live from Area Traffic Control in Leicester, I'm Ben Stones.
Every weekday morning from 9, we meet some amazing people.
If you could say anything to Bernardo's, what would that be?
I'm proud to be a member of the largest family in the world, which is Dr. Bernardo's.
We have full and frank exchanges about the issues that matter.
There is no question of losing.
There might be, Peter. They're saying they can't
Jim,
afford
are you telling me that with £60,000 they can't do that procession through the street?
We hear some priceless stories.
I suppose one of the tales I enjoyed writing about was the time that I almost killed Murray Walker.
And we talk to some priceless characters.
She said, I'm colourblind. But I said, I've no problem with the Guinness. Black and white, they can make that out all right.
How do we pack it in? I'm not sure, but we do. Join me, Jim Davis, back Monday from 9, right here on BBC Radio Leicester.
Showaddywaddy and Under the Moon of Love. And the lead singer at the time that was recorded is Dave Bartram, who's in the studio with us here at BBC Radio Leicester. Dave, it's great to talk to you. When you hear that, does it just waft over you? Are you conscious that it's you? What does it make you feel?
When I actually hear that, it reminds me of when we were recording it, and it was totally chaotic. There seemed to be a lot of people in the studio, and we were trying to make this, obviously, upbeat, sort of party sort of friendly record. But I remember at one point there was one of those Dulux dogs, old English sheepdog, running amok in the studio. It was utter chaos. It's a miracle that we actually ever completed that recording.
Because for many people, that's the one that kind of sums you up in a sense, isn't it?
Well, it was number one around this time of year. In actual fact, it was knocked off at number one on Christmas Eve, which was unheard of.
But that now is officially a million-selling
we've had to wait a long time. But when the song was initially released, we sold 995,000 copies, and we were a little frustrated not to reach the magic million. But I was told literally just in the last 7 days or so that we are now officially a million seller, and
that's because people have downloaded it. And
there's obviously been a number of downloads and things over the years that have taken it over the million mark, which is...
Because you were at Summer Sunday and you played that, I think, didn't you?
Oh, of course, yeah.
And it went down a storm.
Yeah, we had it was my final performance in Leicester a year ago, the August that's just gone, and August 2011, and the public were out there amassed in front of the stage, and it was a wonderful occasion, and fortunately there was no rain that day, and it was wonderful, and I'll always look back fondly on this afternoon, obviously, because it was my final Leicester performance.
So this book that's about to be published shortly, it's called The Boys of Summer. Now, it tells of a particular short span of time in the 40-year history of the band. It's not an entirely happy one, though.
Well, it's I would call it a bittersweet read. At the time, I was managing the band. I'd managed the band's affairs right from back in 1984, and we were offered this run of dates. It was in 2005. At holiday camps. Now, we'd done a few holiday camps to Butlins and quite a number of places that had pretty good facilities. However, this run of 33 dates, the facilities were somewhat lacking. And we were discussing at the time what a great fly-on-the-wall documentary it would have made. This was just about 5 or 6 dates in, and I thought, well, I've got to make some notes here. And for the first time, I started diarising the events of each day, and it was utterly extraordinary what happened in that 10-week period.
Just because, on the one hand, you were used to playing huge gigs, as we know, 50 top-of-the-pops appearances. And
I mean, we were used to slightly better facilities than generally were on offer. I mean, half a dozen of the gigs, were okay. But there were some that just literally couldn't facilitate a band of our size and the kind of production that we wanted to put on. And consequently, it became a nightmare. And another thing that was thrown in to sort of make the tour more appealing from a financial sense was that accommodation was thrown in. If that's what you can call it, accommodation in inverted commas. And it became a bit of a nightmare. We literally did see rats in some of those caravans, and it was utterly bizarre. But there were also a few sort of tragic happenings. Rod, the bass player in the band, lost his brother during that tour. I lost my mum during the same tour, and it was 10 weeks of turmoil, but... there were a few laughs along the way, and the book really is an account, a daily account of the occurrences, and some of them were just totally bizarre, but it makes for a fun read.
And I guess it says a lot about the band, really, doesn't it? Because you could sort of see other bands, groups of people, even whether they're musical or not, just giving up on it, imploding, rather than just knuckling down. I mean, I'm sure there were some moments where it was getting very iffy and difficult, as it would be, but you'd knuckle down and keep going.
The band, the personnel we had in the band around that time, it was very, very harmonious, and that helped enormously for us to get through that tour. you know, I think, you know, had there been certain individuals that had been in the band in its past, and we've been confronted with the same thing, there may have been a few problems and people walking out or whatever.
Different personalities. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, you've agreed to something, and you know, we've always been pretty honourable guys, and we just decided to grit our teeth and get on with it.
Because you have, I mean, it's interesting you made the point about not having the size for a band of your size. Because you have a very big sound.
Oh yeah.
You know, and there's that whole preamble with Romeo Challenger doing the drums, and it just sort of gets people going. Well, if you're doing it in a cupboard, it's a bit harder work.
A lot of people don't realise this, you know, that there has to be, the facilities have to be able to put the band on to do the performance the band really wants to do. And that's the only way the public are going to see the band at their best. Now, if you're confronted with a postage stamp of a stage when you can't get your gear and you can barely get the drum kit on, and you've got to prance around on a sort of tiled floor, you know, at the forefront, it becomes, well, let's put it this way, the presentation isn't quite as slick. And but you know, as I say, we gritted our teeth and got on with it. But there are a few hilarious tales, and you get some characters amongst the audience that frequent these caravan parks, and a few of those are featured in the book as well. And there are some stories that will make your hair curl, but at the same time they'll make you smile.
Was that the moment at which you began to think, maybe I've done enough of this?
I think perhaps it did lay the foundations, yes, for that. I certainly, it was a case of just trying to tough it out rather than actually enjoy it. And it was the first time in my career where I wasn't looking forward to the next day's gig. And it was the first time, certainly, that had happened. And that's, I suppose, ultimately, it created maybe a slight fear factor as to where the band might be playing at in the future.
And as far as the future of the band goes, you're not lead singer anymore, but you're still heavily involved in the band, of course.
Oh, yeah, I still manage the band's affairs. I have done for a number of years.
Is it strange seeing them performing with somebody else singing your song?
I saw them last Saturday in Peterborough, actually, and they did a great job. I've seen them 4 times now, and obviously I was involved in the rehearsals as well with the new lineup. But I think the first time I saw them, it felt a little bit strange. But no, I'm looking at it from a managerial perspective, and I was talking to Rod and sort of going through a few little nits that I had to pick, and you know, where I just want them to do everything right, and I think that's a manager's role, and I'm well aware of the role I have now as opposed to the previous role I had.
I mean, that's a difficult journey to undergo, though, isn't it? To on the one hand creatively take a step back to enable people to perform and bring their own things to it too, and reinterpret things, and you know, move on.
Absolutely.
And move into the business, the numbers,
well, I've been doing that for a number of years, so that wasn't a problem. And in actual fact, you know, when I decided to quit the band, you know, we spoke about this, and I know Rod and Romeo were very concerned what was going to happen on the management side of the band. But you know, I was quite happy to continue in that role, because these days it doesn't really matter where you are, and I do travel quite a lot, but it doesn't matter where you are so long as you've got a laptop with you. You can still take care of business. It's I think 90% of the enquiries and stuff comes via the internet these days, so that wasn't a problem, and it made the whole thing seamless. So from that perspective, you know, that was a real plus point. But in a creative sense, the guys, I think what they did was wonderful, because they thought, well, you know, we haven't got Dave anymore, we've got to play to our strengths and work with what we've got, and that's exactly what they've done, and they're bringing out the members' strengths. And if anything, they are probably a tighter unit as a band, because they're not relying so heavily on myself out there at the front.
And I mean, since I saw Romeo perform, it was I don't think it was an official thing. He played the drums in a pub that we all used to go to, and he always struck me as a really approachable person. You always have to pinch yourself when you meet and chat to somebody who has had such a huge presence. And what is it about real rock stars that enable you to have that kind of charisma that people just want to? Are drawn to you, if you like. I mean, it was just a pub, and it was just a little charity thing, and he was very kind enough to do it in Corn. Yeah, we know the one we're talking about, and it was electrifying. It was utterly a beamy, oldie worldy pubby with drums being played was astounding.
He enjoys playing the drums. It's as simple as that. He is an extremely approachable man. He's an intelligent guy.
Do you switch it on, though, when you go on stage? Do you, on the one hand, you're pottering about at home in the village, maybe doing some stuff, in the local, with people locally, and then that evening you might be in front of hundreds, thousands of people.
Yeah, there is a difference, obviously, if you're playing with a group of mates in a local pub. That's for fun. Yeah. Purely. There's nothing professional about that. The professionalism actually comes in the actual musicianship, but obviously going out on stage as a professional, the most important thing is to have a great gig, and if you have a great gig, the audience will have had a great time. It really is a very simple philosophy. And I know Romeo loves playing drums. He teaches drums at a local school. Drums have been his life. And I assume always will be.
And Showaddywaddy goes on.
It does. Yeah, they're going out doing a 40th anniversary tour next year.
Wow.
And, I'll be popping along to some dates. Whether or not I don a drape jacket and have a bit of a warble is another thing. But
I have a feeling it might happen. Who knows? Dave Bartram, it's been an utter pleasure talking to you this afternoon. The boys are somewhere out in 2 or 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, they're up in the northeast tomorrow, a place called Billingham. We've got a few. There's one in the Midlands coming up in December at the Wolfram Hall in Wolverhampton. But obviously, all the sites are now set on the 40th anniversary tour beginning in January.
And your book available?
The book is available December the 14th in hardback. We're coming out in audio book, I think, in the spring, and I think in paperback as the summer read of all summer reads.
Final plug. That's all I like. Dave, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for coming into BBC Radio Leicester this afternoon.
Thank you.
It's kind of you.